And so even if you are guilty of an offense, you know you're guilty, maybe the evidence is overwhelming, and you're like, well, why would I hire a civilian attorney? Because I can probably get you a hell of a lot better pretrial agreement than the government can. And that happens over and over and over. I've had a lot of cases where we do guilty pleas or negotiate pretrial agreements, and the military defense counsel says, I think you only got that because you're a civilian defense counsel. And I say, no, that's not correct. I got it because I know how to leverage. I know how to get leverage on a prosecutor. And the
Mhm.
first call can't be, please give me a deal. And oftentimes the best deal will happen at the courthouse steps, not at early on. And people don't understand that. So I've saved people decades of time, literally decades of time, who were, guilty of an offense, knew they were guilty of it, were going to plead guilty of it. They've hired me, paid the money to retain me, and we litigated a lot of issues and gained leverage. And the pretrial agreement was substantially better. And so, what did that money buy them? It bought them time. It bought them perhaps years or a decade of your life back. And the question is, what's that worth? A week of my time is worth a lot of money, let alone a year, 5 years, or 10, or even longer than that. So that is really how I guess the main way we negotiate plea agreements and why someone might want to take them. Again, if you're an individual with a low risk tolerance or low risk capacity, then maybe a plea agreement makes sense, but only if the evidence shows that you committed the offense. And we believe in good faith that the government's going to find you guilty of that. And let me give you just one more quick example of what I mean by risk capacity. Let's say you are 55 years old, you're on the brink of retirement age, maybe 59 and a half, 60, you're on the brink of retirement, and you have enough money set aside in your retirement account to retire comfortably. Well, would you take half of that money and short BTC or short Bitcoin? Maybe you would. Maybe are you going to short Tesla because there's a fight between Elon Musk and Trump? Maybe. If you do that wrong and you burn half of your retirement and lose half of that on a very risky investment or risky bet, you're not going to be able to retire. You lose half of
Mhm.
that, your ability to retire is gone. So
Right.
you have very little risk capacity at 55. Or let's say you're 21 years old, you've got 30 years to retirement, you've got an amount saved, and you're like, well, I'm going to bet the farm on this, on maybe a risky option play. If you lose it, you can make it back quickly. It's not going to affect your ability to retire because you've got a 30-year horizon. So that's the way I look at risk capacity. If it's individual for each person, it has to do with family, children, how long they've been in. There's a whole set of factors beyond risk tolerance. I have an exceptionally high risk tolerance, but at this stage of my life, my risk capacity is much lower than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And
That's
you
true.
have to look at that for each individual. So maybe someone that is 21 years in the military has a guaranteed retirement, and I can get a plea agreement that's going to save their retirement. That makes a hell of a lot more sense than someone who has been in the Marine Corps since breakfast. And so those are the things that we look at in terms of risk tolerance and risk capacity as we overlay them onto the evidence themselves.